everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Soul Talk. I am your host, Soul, and this is going to come out every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. And so I would like to welcome my very good friend, Bradley Lovestar here. Bradley, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. And this show, we're going to be talking about things that we recently watched, things we recently read, things that we recently played video games. I know we got that for you later, Bradley. Because let's get right into it. Because we're going to talk about first what we recently read. So, Bradley, go ahead.
I recently just read Batman 3 Jokers, and oh my god, so good. It really tackles the mythos of what Batman means to the Joker and kind of vice versa. And seeing these three different personas that represent the three different eras of Joker was something that was just beautiful to see unfold. And I loved it so much.
I know when I was looking it up that it's Jeff Johns, so obviously it's going to be awesome because he's awesome.
Yeah, he's great as far as comics go. I won't talk about what he does with movies, but
True. And I noticed too that this is going to be on trade paperback November 17th. So I'm 100% buying this because when I was reading the synopsis, I was like, this is up my alley. I consider myself a Marvel person, but I love Batman so much. And I love Joker, which you obviously, if you look at the background. So anything else you want to go into with the story? And
oh man, I'd love to, but there's spoilery stuff, especially towards the end, that I loved what they did with the ending and how they sort of wrapped this up. Because for those of you who are comic book readers, you'll remember in a Detective Comics issue, Batman asked the Mobius chair what the name of the Joker was, and they sort of go back and forth with that. And I love that they you just don't know where they're going to go with the concept of the Joker's name and where it came from. And that's just something that's makes the character who he is, and the way they toy with it is just brilliant.
And I like the fact that they brought that in too. I don't know if this is going to be considered a side story, or do you know where it is in the continuity?
I think this is just a side story for now, which is weird because they sort of tease it in the main continuity that there was three Jokers, and then now it's not canon. So I don't know. I mean, that's DC for you. Just don't care.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Because some things that can be out of continuity goes no spoilers to the book. What I read is that there's stuff that used to be out of continuity that makes it.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Bold choice. I'll say that.
It was a bold choice. And I was like, oh no, I just spoiled myself. Oh well, I'm still going to read it anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess I'll go into mine because I am a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, and I love that this series has kept it alive, but through comic books. So we're going to talk about Katara and the Pirate Silver.
Ooh.
And so this is a story that exists somewhere around book 2, season 2 of the show, because you have Toph and you have Aang and Sokka and Katara in it. So I believe it's somewhere around book 2. That's where I guessed, and because they're in the Earth Kingdom. So I was like, okay, this has to be book 2 if Toph is there. And Katara falls off of Appa and lands in a river. And ends up floating into a city that is being held by the Fire Nation. And so she's just off on her own.
Oh, man.
And she ends up joining with a pirate crew to try to escape this city because it's being held by the Fire Nation. And so it was just a really interesting side story. You got a little bit more about Katara. You got to see her just being the badass that she is. And so I was like, okay, let's give me more stories. Give me more Katara.
I just want to say one thing while we're on this topic of Avatar. Why in the hell does the Fire Nation make houses out of wood? Can I just ask that question? Can I just ask what's going on with that?
That is a very good question.
This comic better answer it or I'm not buying it.
It doesn't, but we should probably email Faith Aaron Hicks because she's now it used to be Jen Luen Yang, who wrote the comics, but now it's Faith Erin Hicks, and we should totally just send her and be like, "Hey, why are they made out of wood?"
Yeah, I'm definitely writing an angry Karen email about this one.
Especially since their ships are made of metal.
Yeah, like what? I say, oh, we got enough metal for one, but everyday way of living. Now just don't worry about it.
Right. And what's cool about this story though is that it does bring in some like propaganda, because you have this one like Fire Nation guy that was like, I believe that the air nomads had an army, and I believe I read it off of a poster. So that,
This guy Alex Jones. Now listen, I'm not saying anything, but the Water Nation, it's just they're interdimensional beings. All right. Like, oh my lord.
So I kind of like with Avatar, because it's obviously directed towards children, but as an adult, you can still take things and learn from them or be reminded about certain things. And you're like, oh, wait, maybe I should pay attention to that in the real world too.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to go into the recent TV watch now. So what was your recent TV watch?
I recently just watched The Haunting of Bly Manor. Oh my goodness. This was so good. Yeah, this is one of like my favorite, like I consider this just a very long like movie. You know what I mean? Because that's how it kind of feels. That's how Hill House felt, and that's how this kind of feels. I'm starting to love gothic horror more than I am like what I guess is called a typical horror. But like the movies like Conjuring, all that kind of stuff. That's its own kind of horror. But I kind of like this kind of horror where it's more like drama than it is like about the scares, because that's what really drove me into movies like Hereditary. And Midsommar was like, Midsommar is actually a breakup movie, and Hereditary is about mental illness. And this season, without getting too much into it, it ultimately becomes a love story. And there's scary stuff in there, and the way that the storytelling is done, especially towards like the last two episodes, like there's this whole like backstory given to just this one thing, and you're like, well, now I'm actually invested and know what's going to happen to the character in the next episode. And I just, I was kind of skeptical about it at first, because it wasn't, I love Mike Flanagan. After I saw, Hill House and of course Doctor Sleep, the sequel, he made a really good sequel to a Stanley Kubrick movie. Yeah. So to hear that he was only doing one episode, I was like, that's kind of a bummer. But I mean, they still kind of like carry the tone and like the cinematography, which is absolutely gorgeous. The score, absolutely just beautiful. I loved it. That's all I have to say about it. Just go watch it if you have a Netflix account, and also watch Bly Manor, Hill House. They're both great gothic horror TV shows. And
is Hill House also on Netflix?
Yes, they're both on Netflix. They're Netflix originals.
So I am a giant wimp when it comes to horror, so I've only seen a little bit of horror, but I've been hearing such good things about the show that I was like, maybe I should watch it. I'll watch it with all the lights on and my blankie, and just like, maybe I'll be okay.
There's one moment. Normally jump stairs don't get jump stairs. Okay, Bradley. This is Pepsi. I just want to clarify, this is Pepsi. This is not an alcoholic beverage. I just want to say that. I'm just dumb. But there's this one jump scare, and it literally caught me so off guard, and it was so subtle that I was like, I was like actually shook. And I normally don't care for jump scare movies, because to me that's not scary. That's just a noise that makes you ugh. But like, give me that horror that resonates with me, and I'm all for it. Like The Shining, like that movie will stick with me for as long as I live.
Or like when you have a horror movie like Us, so you have a horror movie,
kind of, yeah.
Like Get Out. Like I love Get Out, and I'm not a horror person.
It's so good. It's so good. But
right.
yeah.
Anything else you want to speak on it?
Just watch it whenever you can. It's so good. It's probably one of my like favorite horror things ever.
All right. Well, I will do, and I will get back to you after I've seen it, and we can gush about it. Because I hear that it's so good, but I just like, okay, need to get in that horror mode,
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna take it a little bit away from horror and go into reality TV.
The fucking duality of man.
Right? And this is also on Netflix, so you can watch it right now on Netflix, and it's called Indian Matchmaking. So one thing that I love to do is I love learning about new cultures. And this that lady that you saw right there in the picture, her name is Seema Taparia. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing it correctly. I know I'm pronouncing her first name, and she's Mumbai's top matchmaker, and she does matchmaking in India and also here in the United States. And one thing you notice when you're watching the show is that like the people that are asking for her services are in India is because the parents are like, my child needs to get married. We need to find someone for them. Whereas like in the
I'm
United
sick of this shit.
Whereas in the United States, it's people who are like, man, it's so hard finding love. I'm giving up on like trying to find myself someone. Maybe this lady can help me out. So I love the duality of like all these people are Indian, but you have Indian Americans and then Indians from India, and just how like the duality of you have like in India, it's my child needs to get married. It's really the parents that are going to SEMA.
Oh yeah.
Whereas like in the United States, it's like, yo, I just can't find anyone. I need some help, man.
Yo, help me the fuck out, dog.
Right. And so if we go into like the main cast, we have a few people. So there's this one girl named Aparna, who's 34 from Houston, and she's like super, super picky and literally goes through like SEMA's like Rolodex of people. It's like, it's just day after day after day, and all the guys are like, nah.
Jesus.
And she's like, nah. So it's really funny just like watching her story, because I think she's the one that gets the most airtime in this show. But then you also have like someone like, and I'm probably pronouncing his name incorrectly, Akshay, who's 25 and he's in India. And his mom's like, he's too old. He needs to get married.
What a polite way to say, please get the fuck out of my house.
But that's the funny thing is so it's their house is the mom, the dad, the brother and his wife, and then he's the only one of the show that actually ends up getting married. And when they get married, so it's these three couples all living under one roof. And the mom is like, I will teach your new bride how to be a wife to you because I know what you want.
Oh, that could you do anything more embarrassing?
And that's weird to think about. Like, I'm 26 and I'm unmarried. And so, like, just to think about, like, if my parents were like, yo, it's time.
If my parents were just like essentially like, please, for the love of God, get the fuck out, I probably would have just been like, I mean, you just tell me to find an apartment. Oh man.
But yeah, it's funny to see like the way that different cultures do things. And so it was kind of like that they make like bio datas, and that in India they don't call arranged marriages. They call the marriages, and then if it's not arranged, they call it a love marriage. So yeah.
I want to make sure I heard what I heard.
Yeah, you heard what you heard.
An arranged marriage is called a marriage, but if it's not arranged, then it's just pure love. Yep. Yeah, like a normal fucking marriage, you mean? Okay, I'm not gonna speak on it. That's just it's a culture I'm not aware of, and it's just some things that maybe that was lost in translation. Who fucking knows? I'm hoping for the latter.
Yeah, and on the last episode, they like the last few minutes they bring in a new person, and then like leave it on a cliffhanger. So I was like, there needs to be a season 2. I need to know what happens to this person.
I didn't know if he kicked out of his parents' house or not.
Because me and my mom got so stuck into this, we watched it and like we went to bed like at 4 a.m. because we watched the whole season in one go.
God,
it was like we need to keep watching this trash.
That's how I feel about Ghost Adventures.
All right, so I guess that was what I recently watched TV wise. Now we're gonna go on what we recently watched movie wise. So, what'd you recently watch movie wise, Bradley?
Oh, I just watched a little thing called hold up. Oh, it's called hold on. Just give it time. Wham! It's called the Magic Railroad Parody. It's got my boy Thomas right here, and that is yep. There we go. Yep, that's my boy. So what this is a lot of the people watching this might not know about Thomas and the Magic Railroad, but it was essentially the first like theatrical release Thomas movie, because Thomas was like fucking big in the 80s and everything, and then like he just kept the popularity kept going, so like, oh, let's just make a movie. And it, ladies and gentlemen, it stinks. I can't lie to you, it stinks. But what this movie does is it takes a lot of the elements that were cut out of the original movie and puts them back in and expands upon, like, if my camera could show it, I would show my Magic Railroad wall that I have right here that I'm pretty sure Soul has seen.
Yeah.
I have a whole wall dedicated to them because it's so bad, but like I loved it growing up, so it's kind of just like stuck in my head. But this parody, it's essentially like, think of Cheech and Chong, like if Cheech and Chong met Cars, like Disney's Cars. It's like that. It's a stoner comedy. It's got some musical numbers in it, and it's just really, really funny. And it's especially funny if you're a fan of the show, whether you watch it now or whether you grew up with it like I did. And yeah, it essentially just takes like what makes Thomas good and also like adds onto it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I highly recommend, even if you haven't seen the original. Like I watched it with my wife, and she was just like, "Yeah, it's pretty funny." Like we both watched that parody, and it was just something that was like really fun. I will say it's over 3 hours long. Well, it's like right at 3 hours, but that's because it's so fleshed out, and it goes by like that. Like I listen to it sometimes in the background where at my job, and I'll just be like, "Oh," whew, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's break! Wow, that really happened so fast." But yeah, it's one of my favorite things, and it fits because this year is actually the 20th anniversary of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. So, you know, seeing that and like then going and seeing the actual movie in theaters with my wife was something that was like really big for me this year. I was just like, wow, I've really like grown up. I was 3 years old when this movie came out, and now I am a 23-year-old grown man who still watches this movie.
If you want to speak on to why like Thomas was so important to you growing up, because I know this story, but the people might want to hear this.
Oh yeah, so Thomas was a big part of me growing up, and kind of is what got me into making movies in general. I used to take my parents like VHS like camera and just like film my trains and be like, choo choo, boop, just do that kind of shit. But Thomas kind of like because I had a rough childhood without getting too dark. I had a rough childhood, and so I didn't really get to like grow up. But the show kind of grew up with me, and I still found myself at like 11, way past like the primary target audience of like, hey, it's still a pretty good show. And like I watched it for years, and I just now got back into it because, you know, my wife, thank God, is the only woman I've ever known that's ever been accepting of it. Everyone else has been like, okay. But my wife was just like, yeah, do you? If you love it, you love it. And I was like, yes, I'm gonna spend so much money.
and the thing, what I think about is like, you have things that you love and things that you love even from childhood, and no one should yuck someone's yum. So like, if your yum is Thomas, then that's your yum, man.
Yeah, and it's no different than watching a Disney movie, if you ask me. It's slowly like no different, because I guarantee you Frozen is not made for like grown 30-year-old women who are trying to fix their broken marriage. It's mainly made for like people who can barely even walk and or speak.
Like, you know my 3-year-old niece, that's her favorite movie.
Yeah, exactly. Disney's not like, oh, we gotta appeal to the 23-year-olds that are watching this movie.
Or speaking earlier, Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's targeted towards children, but I still take something out of it because I loved it when it came out. Okay, so I guess we're gonna go into mine. So I recently rewatched The Producers, which is my favorite musical. And you have Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, Uma Thurman, and Will Ferrell in this. And it's a satirical comedy, and that's some of my favorite type of comedy is when they do something very satirical, like Death of Stalin. That was a very satirical comedy movie. And then what is more satirically hilarious than Will Ferrell as a singing Nazi who writes a musical as a love letter to Hitler?
If you have told me 10 years ago that I would hear those words in one single sentence, I probably would have called you crazy and just like booped you on the head.
The thing is, this is a very old movie. This started as a stage play, then became a movie, then became a stage play musical, then now is a musical movie. And that came out. This was 2005 was when this movie came out.
Oh wow, that's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And basically the main premise of this movie is you have Nathan Lane, his name is Max Bialystock in the movie, and he is he's a Broadway producer, and the way he gets money for his Broadway shows is that he has sex with all these little old ladies all over New York. And so he basically pimps himself out.
Y'all heard that too, right? Y'all heard that too? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. All right. Go on.
And then you have Matthew Broderick, who is Leo Bloom, and he's like this nervous accountant who is going over his books one day and is like, oh, you can make more money with a flop than with a hit, because if you basically steal all of this money or write all this money in a weird way, sending it to the IRS, if it's a flop, no one will look into it. But if it's a hit, the IRS would look into it. So they're looking for the worst play ever written and looking for the worst director ever. And so that's where Will Ferrell comes into it. They take his play Springtime for Hitler and try to produce it.
Just imagine like you're on Broadway and you're just like, that's a spring for Hitler? What the? I gotta go. Unbelievable. That's exactly what happened if that was a real billboard in like Times Square.
Yes, they have, and it has so many great musical numbers, and like I listen to the soundtrack all the time. It's just like one of those like feel good movies. And like even though like you have things like Hamilton and In the Heights and Book of Mormon, other musicals that I love, because this one still has remained my favorite musical.
I like Book of Mormon from what I've seen of it, or heard of it rather, and yeah, I'll definitely check this out because I love Will Ferrell. You know,
and it's on Netflix right now too. So you can
that's even better. I will probably watch tonight on my home theater. Probably like the first like movie I actually watch on it.
Nice. So we're gonna go into our anything extra category. So right now, what would you like to talk that is not movies or TV or books at the moment?
Let me just say, I've listened to a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire recently. Oh, so good. Seriously underrated. Yeah, they're seriously underrated.
I saw them in concert once.
Oh, man. Unfortunately, I think the lead singer's name was Maurice White. He unfortunately passed away. But what I love about, like, you can see this a lot in their performances. Even now, even just like the remaining members, like, they have so much positivity, and the best part is that like Maurice, like the lead singer, was like, "No, we don't use drugs. We're just happy people." And I really hope that was the case, because if so, then I have been defending something else for like 3 weeks now. But like, of course, they made September, and so do you remember? Everyone knows that song. Let's Groove is another great one, and Boogie Wonderland is, and those are the three I've kind of heard right now. But I'm venturing more into their discography, and it's just so
they're
good.
Great.
Yeah, they're so good.
And I love too like the fact that they have like a full band. So when I saw them live, it was a full band behind them, and just as a band kid, it's always cool to be like, there's something. If I ever wanted to go further in music, like I could be in a full band backup behind people like Earth, Wind, and Fire. That would be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, God, even Panic at the Disco, they do that too. They have like live violins and live like orchestras and shit like that.
They're one of my favorite bands, Panic, as well. Yes.
I've also been playing a lot of Spider-Man PS4 to prepare for Spider-Man Miles Morales, because I was one of the few who actually got lots of, like, I sound like I'm bragging, but I was one of the few who actually got a PS5 pre-order, and
nice.
So I'm waiting for that to come in, because I love Spider-Man PS4 does what like the Arkham games did for Batman. It's the first time, like, when you're swinging through the city, you feel like Spider-Man, and the momentum from your webs and your speed all depends on how you actually like travel throughout the city. So if you go really slow, then you're gonna go really slow. But if you can like constantly go from like one web to another, then you're just like, it's like actually like being in Spider-Man. The closest I've ever felt to that was playing the Spider-Man VR that came out for Far From Home. But yeah, such a great game, and it feels like Spider-Man 4, like it feels like a Sam Raimi movie.
Oh, nice,
possible, and I love that. And unlocking the suit helps that too.
I'm planning on getting a PS5 when I'm able to get one, because the last time I've owned a console was the Wii.
Oh
So
man, I'm so sorry.
so it's been a while, and so I'm gonna get back into gaming, and I'm gonna get and since the PS5 is backwards compatible, I'm gonna get the PS4 game, and I'm actually planning on getting the Arkham games too, because I haven't played them. I've seen the play-alongs on YouTube and stuff, but I haven't played it yet, and they just look so.
Oh yeah, the Arkham games are so good.
So
but
I'm
get the remaster if you're gonna play the original game. You get the remaster because it's gonna have a bunch of new suits and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I will come to you for my gaming knowledge.
Hell yeah.
So if we're gonna go now into my anything extra, it's actually gonna be Bo Burnham's comedy specials. I recently watched the last two. So the first one is What, which he did at 22, and the last one he did was Make Happy, which he did at 25. I think he's now 30. I think he's 4 years older than me. And just going on, like, one thing I love about the producers, and now I love about this with Bo Burnham, or love with Lonely Island, or things like that, is like comedy and music and putting it together. Just
yeah, I love comedy music. Comedy music is so great.
And the thing too that you can kind of tell when you're watching, but then actually hearing him in interviews, is that he suffers from anxiety, and you can see that in the show. And like the last show, Make Happy, where he has the song like Are You Happy, and it's basically like talking about how while doing these shows, like how much anxiety and how much depression he went through. And I think that's why he stopped doing comedy shows. And he wrote 8th grade, and so I think he's moving to do other things now. But it's kind of cool to see, and that even people that suffer from like anxiety and depression can actually like bring things out and make people laugh. And it has that kind of thing with like Robin Williams, and you think about that, and so you're just like, take care of yourself, please, because yes, I love watching your stuff, but please take care of yourself.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. That's absolutely how I feel.
Some of my favorite parts, so from What, is the glitter in the air when he goes, my dad says my shows are too flamboyant, and then he throws glitter up in the air.
Yeah. What about this, Dad? So good.
And then the I fuck sluts.
A classic bit.
And I love at the end, it goes, he was using derogatory language because he had his heart broken. We all learned something. And the left brain, right brain too.
Oh yeah. Bit. Oh man.
Definitely go listen to that one. Now from Make Happy, my two favorite is the country music song that he does.
Oh man, the country music one always cracks me up. I sometimes listen to that when I'm having like the worst day of my life.
And then the Lower Your Expectations, which what I really like about that song is that it first goes in and it's like, hey, if you might need to lower your expectations, you're not going to get the perfect person when you're trying to look for someone to be with. But then at the end, he ends it with, but we all deserve love. And so he's making fun of people, but then saying, you still deserve love at the end. And I'm just like, look at you making me laugh and making me cry at the same time.
Heard that.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Not that I can think off the top of my head.
Okay. So this has been a great conversation. I always love talking to you, Bradley. Like, you always make me laugh, and you're the greatest. Hey. And I also, if you want to talk about your music, because we have a link in the description right now where you can get his album on Spotify. I think it's also on Apple, right?
It's not on Apple yet, but you can buy it on Amazon, and you can buy it through Bandcamp. I think Bandcamp takes a smaller cut of the whatever, you know what I'm saying.
Of the profits, yeah.
Yeah, that. I almost said like prostate for some reason. I have no idea why. But yeah, I did a cover album called Back in Time because, it's like Back to the Future and all that shit. And I did a lot of songs on it that I'm really proud of. This is my first release as an artist, as Bradley Lovestar. I've been wanting to do an album for years. if you look up Bradley Lovestar on YouTube, then I have a video out for a cover I did of You Spin Me Around Like a Record, which is one of my favorites on the record. I like that one. I like Dream On a lot, and I like Do You Believe in Magic? Those are my personal favorites as far as like harmonies and just like vocal ranges go. But yeah, it was a big passion project of mine.
The one that I personally love is Love of My Life. Because like anytime I hear that song, I cry.
Funny story, actually. There was a version that never got released of that where we used some samples of Freddie Mercury's voice from different concerts to make it sound like I was having a duet with him. Mm-hmm. But there were some issues with the rights and doing that kind of thing, so I think I never got to release it. I made it, but I never got to release it. I might release it on my YouTube channel or whatever if they ever let me do it. But
look forward to that if you're able to do it.
If I can't like put it up on like for sale or anything, I'll just put it up for free on YouTube. I don't really care, you know.
Right. Is there anywhere else people can find you?
You can follow me on Twitter. I actually have I have a Twitter just for my music, and I have a Twitter if you want to follow me. My Twitter is Sketchy Studios. If you want to follow me, and basically I'm my Twitter timeline consists of two things: Thomas and shit posting, and sometimes those things combine. So if you're into that, follow me. I also have just like a really I just rebranded it now, but a Twitter just for my music. It's just at Brad Lovestar. If you want to check that out, and like I said, Bradley Lovestar on YouTube. And, you can also get the album on Amazon and on, I just had it, Bandcamp. Sorry, I zoned out for a second.
You're good. And you can find me at SoulGovan on Twitter and at soul.k.govan on Instagram. I also want to give a big shout out to Ben Rayner, our producer, because you can find him at Ben Rayner 2. He's the best in the biz. And for you guys to know that this, our Get Sweaty show is not going to be this Sunday. It's going to be this Saturday. And so check out for the time there. And please give a like and a subscribe and hit that bell. And I hope you've enjoyed this and we've enjoyed having this conversation. And love you guys and bye.